Hello and welcome back to Rock Records Reviewed. My name's Adam, and this week we're going to take a look at the top 10 albums by the godfather of British folk rock, Richard Thompson. Now, I'm hoping that most of you know who Richard Thompson is. He was born in Notting Hill in London in 1949, and he went on to pioneer British folk rock with Fairport Convention, the legendary folk rock band from England in the 60s. He left them and went on to have a career with his wife, Linda Thompson. They made some records together before they broke up, and he has had a solo career of dizzying commercial failure, which we will talk about as we go along. But that does not reflect the artist's worth remotely. Richard Thompson, I feel, is absolutely one of the greatest living artists, and I don't say that lightly. His songs are witty, they're smart, they're dark, they're acerbic, they're sad, they're maudlin. And along with his amazing songwriting, you have this powerful voice, which I readily admit isn't for everybody, but it absolutely beautifully goes along with the songs that he writes. And this extraordinary guitar playing, whether electric or acoustic, he is absolutely one of the finest guitar players on the planet. His songs have been covered by Bob Dylan, by R.E.M., by Bonnie Raitt, by Los Lobos, many other people. His appeal is in these sort of beautifully crafted ruminations on love and relationships and life, and they're usually seen through the eyes of characters who sort of live on the edge of society or even sanity. I suspect one of the reasons he's never really broken through to a mainstream is because his music isn't particularly joyous or positive, but it's no less brilliant because of it. And so what I've done here is I've chosen my favourite Richard Thompson albums, but I've also tried to put together at the same time a top 10 that kind of really does reflect his career, just in case you're not that familiar with him. But anyway, look, let's crack on. So at number 10, from 1994, his seventh solo album, Mirror Blue. This album is the follow-up to Rumour and Sigh, which had been teasing a commercial breakthrough for Richard Thompson. We'll talk about that album a bit later. His record company, I think, were trying to turn him into a kind of Elvis Costello type of figure. The album's produced by Mitchell Froom, and it's got some great players on it. Danny Thompson on double bass, a long-time Richard Thompson collaborator. Jerry Sheff, who played bass with Elvis and the Doors. Pete Thomas, the drummer from the Attractions, Elvis Costello's band. And it's got some great songs on it, but the production was really slated at the time. There's very little reverb on this record. The percussion is bizarre. It doesn't always follow the backbeat, but that's Richard Thompson just kind of, despite the record company wanting him to make a commercial record, that's him exploring his muse. I think the proof is in the pudding, and I really like the songs. You've got Mascara Tears, Can't Wake Up, Easy There, Steady Now, Fast Food, which is a great fun song, and you've got Beeswing. Now, on every Richard Thompson album, there seems to be one song which is just absolutely transcendental, where he gets everything absolutely right and comes up with the song which it just takes your breath away. And Beeswing on this album is one of those songs. A song about a man who can't pin down his gypsy lover, and it's heartbreaking and absolutely beautiful. I suggest you check it out. At number 9, from 1983, his second solo album, Hand of Kindness. Now, he had this relationship with his musical relationship with his wife, Linda Thompson, but it didn't end very well at all. We're going to sort of go into that a bit later. And this was the first album he'd made since his split with Linda, and you can tell that a lot of weight has been lifted. This is quite a happy album. It might be Richard Thompson's happiest album. They'd just finished what both of them admit was a tour from hell, and very difficult for both of them to get through. But here, there's a joy in this record. Tear-Stained Letter is the opener, which is great fun. Two Left Feet is also good fun. I mean, I say good fun because they're bouncing around and they're tuneful, but they're still quite dark lyrically when you read them. Where the Wind Don't Whine is a cracking song as well. the players on this record are all absolute folk go-to men. People like Dave Pegg, Pete Zorn, Simon Nicol, Dave Mattix. It's practically a Fairport Convention album in many ways. But like I say, probably one of Richard's more up-tempo records. And there's a lot of good tunes on this one as well. And number 8 is his 16th solo album from 2015, Still. Now, this is the most recent album on this list, and it's a great example of how he hasn't mellowed or softened at all. You've got Patty, Don't You Put Me Down, Never Could Resist a Winding Road. His songwriting skills are as sharp as ever on this record, and it's, you know, he's still twisting melodies and phrases and still digging the knife in and pulling it out and then digging it into himself. I mean, that's the kind of songwriter he is. It's also got Guitar Heroes on the end of this record, which is a tribute to his guitar heroes, and each verse is in the style of a different guitarist, and he copies that style. I saw him do the same thing on stage many, many, many years ago, where all the crowd were shouting out different guitarists, and he'd just immediately in the same song, go into their style. It was brilliant. It was absolutely fantastic. He also broke a string, and he carried on playing and changed the string with his other hand, which I thought was very, very impressive. Jeff Tweedy from Wilco produces this album, and you can hear that they're striving for a new sound sonically. There's a kind of stripped back directness in the production that really exposes Richard Thompson's voice beautifully. And number 7 from 1969, Unhalf Bricking. This is the third Fairport Convention album. Fairport started off, on their first albums covering American songwriters like Dylan and Joni Mitchell. But on this album, they've really sort of shifted towards a more sort of English-centric sound and a much more English, traditionally folky sound. It's produced by Joe Boyd, who worked with Pink Floyd and went on to work with REM and John Martin and a host of other folk names. There's still a couple of Dylan songs on here. Percy's song, $1 Million Bash, there's another one as well. But this album is best known for Sandy Denny's contribution, Who Knows Where the Time Goes. And look, I don't mean to condescend to you, but if you don't know Who Knows Where the Time Goes by Fairport Convention, I'm begging you to go and check it out. It's just so heartbreakingly beautiful. You probably may recognise it because it's starting to get used in the public a lot more, because I think more and more people are realising that it is really one of the great, great songs. It was actually voted favourite folk song of all time by not Rolling Stone, I think by the BBC, I think. Richard Thompson contributes Genesis Hall, Cajun Woman, and Q Magazine called this put it at number 41 in the top 50 English albums of all time, and it is a very, very English album, not least because of Richard Thompson's guitar playing. Joe Boyd once said that the thing about Richard Thompson's playing is he never ever betrays his roots or compromises his Englishness. So you won't hear him playing a load of blues licks or anything like that. He absolutely comes from that Celtic folk tradition, and it comes out in his guitar playing really, really apparently, especially in the early days with Fairport Convention. Number 6 from 1975, the second Richard and Linda Thompson album, Hokey Pokey. Now this was recorded quite a long time before it came out, and it is, a word you'll hear people say a lot with Richard Thompson stuff is bleak, and this album really is a great representation of a bleak outlook on life. It's full of sad characters looking for some enlightenment. I'll Regret It All in the Morning, Georgie on a Spree, A Heart Needs a Home, which is a bit of a Richard Thompson classic. It's no surprise that not long after he'd written this album, both of them changed their faith completely, their religion completely, quite publicly, looking for something, looking for a different path in life. These songs are much, much less rock, much, much more traditionally folky. There's a lot of instrumentation on here: dulcimers, mandolins, fiddles, accordions and harps. It really does create a completely sort of Celtic folk atmosphere, which I admit it isn't for everyone. A lot of people will find that a bit twiddly fiddly and will want something a little bit more straight with a more straight backbeat. But you know, you've got pub sing-alongs, you've got music hall on here, you've got English hymns, brass bands, you've got all these really, really traditionally English styles coming together to create a really wonderfully uniform sounding record. But look, now we're going to get to the serious stuff now. These next 5 albums, I think, are really, really essential records if you're looking to investigate Richard Thompson. So at number 5, from 1975, his third album with Linda, Pour Down Like Silver. By this stage, as I just alluded to, both of them had converted their religion to the Sufi Muslim faith, and Richard Thompson was conflicted. He was not sure that this new faith would allow him to play electric guitar and play rock and roll and everything. But after a lot of discussion and some spiritual guidance, he decided that he would be able to do that if he wrote songs that reflected his faith. So many of these songs have a very spiritual spiritual side to them. You've got Dimming of the Day, which was covered beautifully by Bonnie Raitt, Beat the Retreat, Night Comes In. And it's also, it's the first album where as a guitar player, he's decided he really can let rip. So you've got these long extended workouts with these dizzying guitar solos, you know, twisting scales and guitar phrases inside out to make this really, really unique and individualistic style of playing that he has. Now look, these are not big, precise, perfect songs. You know, they're very, very human pieces of music, and they have all the vulnerability and sadness of humanity in them, and that's not just in the voices. You know, Linda's heartbreaking voice and Richard's voice, and not just in the words, but really in the performances and the production and the sounds as well. It's just that somber attitude, that somber feeling is intrinsic in the music that Richard Thompson makes most of the time, and this is a really good example of that. This record. And number 4, though, from 1991, his 6th solo album, Rumour and Sigh. Note the American spelling of rumour, as is on the album cover, people. Produced by Mitchell Froom, this was the point where, as I said earlier, the record company were looking to sort of turn him into this kind of Elvis Costello, Dave Edmunds, Nick Lowe type of character. And it is the album where it almost happened for him. I mean, if ever an artist had been banging their head against a brick wall, you know, because of just titanic proportions of commercial failure, it's Richard Thompson. But this album actually gave him a hit single, Feel So Good, which is cracking. It's a great song. And the album was also Grammy nominated for Best Alternative Album. It got to number 32 in the UK, so it was his first top 40 hit. I mean, this is how unsuccessful he'd been. It is a much more commercial sound for him. It's bigger choruses, bigger drums. Read About Love is another great pop rock song. I Misunderstood is lovely. But there's elements of classic Richard Thompson on here. Don't Sit on My Jimmy Shans and Psycho Street are very much in keeping with his sort of dark sense of humour. But the album is absolutely, unquestionably, today best known for the absolutely stunning 1952 Vincent Black Lightning. This song is an absolute landmark in acoustic guitar playing, as I have said in my guitar players show. It was covered by Bob Dylan, no less, live on stage, and it's just an absolutely extraordinary piece of music. The guitar feature in it is breathtaking, but it's a wonderful song. It's a wonderful, powerful song. And again, as with Beeswing and Who Knows Where the Time Goes, if you haven't heard 1952 Vincent Black Lightning and you have any interest in storytelling songs and acoustic guitar playing, then you must go and Google it now. Not now. No, wait till the end of the show. Then go Google it. So number 3 from 1969 is the 4th Fairport Convention album, Liege and Leaf. This really is a British folk rock bible, this album. It's the go-to album for loads of British folk rock fans. And it's easy to see why. Half the songs are adapted from English traditional Celtic folk songs, and the other half are songs written in that style. So you've got songs like Matty Groves and Tam Lin, which are folk traditionals, And then you've got songs like Come All Ye, which were written very much to work well with them. So as a result, you get a really wonderfully uniform feel to the album. Got to number 17 on the UK album charts, but the truth is that its legend has just grown and grown over time. Sandy Denny takes centre stage. Now, remember, Sandy Denny went on to sort of sing with Led Zeppelin on Led Zeppelin 4, Battle of Evermore, but she really is one of the pioneering voices of British music and very, very influential singer. You've got Dave Swarbrick, who came in on virtuoso fiddle. And a lot of the album has got these fantastic guitar fiddle interplays between Dave Swarbrick and Richard Thompson. In 2002, it was voted the most important folk rock album of all time by BBC Radio 2, and 4 years later it was voted the most influential folk rock album of all time by Radio 2 viewers. It is very, very folky, but it really rocks as well, and that I think is in part to Richard Thompson's guitar. I mean, his guitar just cuts through the music like a cutlass through this sort of folky bramble. And as I say, firing licks with Dave Swarbrick and his fiddle. I saw Dave Swarbrick and Richard Thompson play this at the Liege Leaf 40th anniversary concert at Cropredy many, many years ago. And it was, oh my God, it was breathtaking watching these two absolute virtuosos playing off each other. It was just making me laugh remembering it now. I mean, I don't know, where to begin. Go Google it if you can, because it's extraordinary. But it really is an essential album for any serious folk rock fan. And number 2, from 1982, his 6th album with Linda, Shoot Out the Lights. Now this is one of those universally acclaimed albums. Many feel it's Richard Thompson's greatest album. It's certainly up there, top 2. But the story goes that he and Linda have been having such appalling success that by the album preceding this, Sunny Vista, they ended up losing their record deal. So they didn't have a deal, but their friend Jerry Rafferty of Baker Street fame, offered them a slot supporting him on tour, and also offered to bankroll their an album for them at the end of it and help them find a deal. So wonderful, but sadly, Richard and Jerry fell out during the recording of the album. And Richard found himself with no deal. Richard and Linda found themselves with no deal. But Joe Boyd, who had been producing the album, said, "Well, look, all right, I'll release it on my Hannibal label," which is a tiny little sort of cottage industry label that Joe Boyd had. And the result was Shoot Out the Lights. Now, you have to remember that Richard and Linda's relationship had been deteriorating dramatically for a long time. And, this is it's an album that really does pull back the curtain and let us see right in on domestic disharmony of a relationship that's just falling apart before our very eyes. Don't Renege on Our Love, Walking on a Wire, Shoot Out the Lights, Did She Jump or Was She Pushed, The Brilliant Wall of Death. These songs, this is one of the greatest musical soundtracks to a breakup. That it's happening as you're listening, as there is. It's powerful, painful music. The critical reaction was overwhelming. It makes scores and scores of the best albums of all time lists. It's always in the top 5 of the best albums you've never heard of lists, that kind of thing. Rolling Stone put it number 9 on their 100 best albums of the 80s. They toured this album. But then broke up. That was the tour from hell I was talking about earlier. I'm happy to say that they have played together not too long ago, and they do. In fact, I think they made a record together. Yes, they did, A Family Tree. So things aren't as bad as they once were. But at number 1 on my Richard Thompson list is from 1974. His first album with Linda Thompson, I Want to See the Bright Lights Tonight. Now, this album was never a success, but it is, again, regarded as a classic. Richard Thompson had gone solo after Fairport Convention, and he'd made an album called Henry the Human Fly, which is famously one of the worst selling albums of all time. This is really is a theme in Richard Thompson's brilliant career. So he started a relationship with session singer he'd met, Linda Peters, and they ended up marrying and became Richard and Linda Thompson. They recorded this album very quickly in London with producer John Wood. And I really do think this is one of the greatest atmosphere records of all time. This music it's desolate and it's bleak, but it's beautiful. I mean, when I listen to it, I can't help feeling that I'm standing in some open English moor, blustery English moor as winter sets in when I hear these songs. And if you like being transported away like that with music, being taken to a completely different place, then this album really is for you. I mean, and every song on here hits the bullseye and just adds to the richness of that atmosphere. You've got When I Get to the Border, brilliant opening song. You've got the title track, Down Where the Drunkards Roll, Has He Got a Friend for Me, End of the Rainbow, The Great Valerio. Just the titles themselves are sort of bleak and sort of something quite sort of mystical about them. The music here is it's taken from some some pagan kind of hinterland that Richard Thompson has in his back pocket, and he can put it to music and set these amazing dramatic landscapes musically with his voice and his words and his guitar. I mean, this isn't just superior folk rock. This is superior songwriting, full stop. He really is one of the very, very greatest lyricists that we've had. And all the folk elements are there on this album. You've got all the hurdy-gurdy and the accordion and everything, but unlike on a record like Hokey Pokey, I don't think they take over too much. I don't think they are. What you're left here with is a much more rounded picture than just that big folk influence. Rolling Stone made it number 479 on their all-time top 500 albums, but I think it's better than that. I really do, and I think if you listen to it, you might agree with me. So that's it. Those are my top 10 Richard Thompson albums. He's made many, many records, and there's always a gem or two on every one of them. Amnesia, Across a Crowded Room, Electric, even his double album You, Me, Us, which was panned, has a handful of beautiful, beautiful songs on it. So if you don't know much about him, you're looking to get into him, do check out the top 5 here, because they're really, really great records, I think by anybody's standards. And they're definitely worth your time. He's definitely worth your time. And if you do investigate, I hope you hear something you like very, very much. Let me know in the comments below. But look, that's it for this week. I will see you again very soon for another Rock Records Reviewed. Until then, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.